Welcome to Hearthside Creations. I'm Corinne, an author, knitter, and creative guide living in the woods of central Maine. I always like to start with a warm and grounding cup of tea, and today it's Tea Pig's English breakfast. I'm going to be sharing my top cozy and comforting books, so grab a mug of something delicious and we'll get into it shortly. Thanks for being here. I so appreciate your presence. Hello friends! This week I wanted to share some cozy comfort reads, the books that I go back to time and time again, and I thought maybe you could take some inspiration from them. Maybe they'll remind you of one of your favorite authors that you haven't revisited for a long time. So the stack is not too big, but I'll get into it in just a second. I am not a huge rereader. It takes a lot for me to go back to a book, or at least it has in the past. The older I get, the more I enjoy going back and reading books that I enjoyed in the past, because sometimes you don't remember what happened or key points or anything like that. So it's kind of fun to revisit them and remember what you liked about them, remember what life was like when you read it the first time. I feel like it's a nostalgic practice that is super comforting and cozy, especially this time of year where it's February as I'm taping this now, and it's cold and there's not much else to do other than stay cozy and read some really good books. So the first one is Gift from the Sea by Morrow Lindburgh. I'll show you this. I used to have probably 3 or 4 copies of this book, but I've given it to friends over the years. It's this tiny book of wisdom that was written initially in 1955. This edition was reprinted in 1975, and it's still timeless. Like, it's absolutely timeless. This goes through, I think the story is that she spent a weekend on Cape Cod or something like that, and that's where a lot of the inspiration for this book came from. It is about finding yourself. It's about marriage. It's about motherhood. It's about womanhood. It's a really beautiful book that is so underrated, but it really does stand the test of time. There was one bit that I wanted to read aloud as I was going through. I have this book marked up and back. Like, it is full of asterisks and underlining, which in my mind shows what a great book it is. So she writes, I remember again, ironically, that today more of us in America than anywhere else in the world have the luxury of choice between simplicity and complication of life. And for the most part, we who could choose simplicity choose complication. Definitely check this one out. It's a quick read. It will, how do I want to put this? I think it will resonate with just about anyone. At any stage of life. The first time I read this, I had very young children, and it resonated in a whole different way than it does now. I go back to this one quite frequently. The next book is so beloved that the cover has been disintegrated. This is the cover now. The book is Mandy by Julie Andrews Edwards. So the same Julie Andrews who is in Mary Poppins and all of the other incredible things that she's done. She wrote this book called Mandy. It's about a It's about, I think, a 10-year-old who has lived in an orphanage her entire life, and then she sneaks over, you know, a garden wall or something like that, and finds this abandoned cottage. And I remember reading it as a young girl, and one of the trying to find it here, one of the things that stuck with me was, in this cottage there was a wall of shells, like ocean shells and seashells, and I can't remember if it was wallpaper or if it was actually shells. Here, I don't know if you can see that. It is just the most delightful book. And so this cottage is old and dusty, and Mandy takes care of it, and I think she has a couple trusted people who help her, and it's just absolutely delightful. Yeah, this is my copy from childhood, and so I will insert a picture of the cover so that you can actually see what it looks like, but it is truly a delight, and it hits a good note even as an adult. So the next one kind of ties into that. I remember reading, like so many of you, Anne of Green Gables as a kid. I've got my special editions that my mom gave me for a birthday, but in 2019, before COVID, before all of the things, we took a vacation to Prince Edward Island. And in the lead up to that, I started reading lots of L.M. Montgomery's work, Lucy Maud Montgomery's work, titles that I hadn't read before. And Emily of New Moon, I think, is another absolutely delightful book, a little bit darker than Anne, if you haven't read it. But I came across this book, and it has jumped up to my absolute favorite. This is The Blue Castle by Lucy Maud Montgomery. And I have read this several times now, and every time I think I laugh out loud, I swoon a little bit. It is a truly, I think this is like the original rom-com, if not the original, close to it. It is funny, it is witty, it is everything that you want a romantic comedy to be. There are really eccentric family members. The main character, Valancy, has been like shut up in her house for basically her whole life as like an invalid, and then she decides she's kind of done, and she finds out, that she only has so much time to live, so she thinks, and just like all of the filters that she had before, all of the reasons for her to, keep her mouth shut and to play the nice girl and to people please, all of those are out the window, and it's just such a treat. So if you have not read this, but love Lucy Maud Montgomery, give this a read. And that vacation was just absolutely amazing. And so what I love about, I just love reading and authors and like the connections that you make with stories. So much of that place, Prince Edward Island, felt really familiar to me because I'd grown up there. Like I'd grown up there mentally, like I'd grown up in those Anne books. And so being there, we visited the Anne of Green Gables place, the park, the house, all of it. And it was really emotional for me. Like I remember walking around, and we were with, my husband and my kids, and then we went with another family. I couldn't talk. I was so overwhelmed. I was so filled with emotion. And that whole place the whole island, I don't think I've ever felt such a strong sense of belonging to a place as I did there. I don't know, I'm not quite sure what it was, but yeah, it's something that I think about often, and now whenever I pick up one of her books, I'm kind of transported back there again. So again, books are magic. These two will not surprise anyone, and I couldn't pick just one to share. I was late to the Jane Austen party. I did not read any of her work until I was in my late 20s. I think, yeah, my late 20s. Of course, I'd seen Pride and Prejudice from the very beginning. My husband is kind of like Mr. Darcy, and so there's a strong, or I have a soft spot in my heart for that character. But while I do reread Pride and Prejudice, and I think it's hysterical, that's the one thing I think some people miss about Jane Austen, is that she was really funny, and her writing was really funny, and it was a critique on the time and place. So yeah, so I think she's really funny. But I think I actually like Persuasion better. This is the cover of my copy. So I'd love to know what you think. If you're a Jane Austen fan, which book is your favorite? I think it's close, but there's something about Persuasion that I really enjoyed. So I do revisit her books. I find them very cozy, funny, charming, and just the way that she portrays friendship and family and relationships. I love her writing. Next up, I've got The Winter Sea by Susanna Kearsley. This was the first book I ever read of Susanna Kearsley's, and it's the one that really sucked me in. She has tons of books at this point, and quite a few of them are related to each other, but she's a Canadian author, and these are, I guess, historic romance. They're not super, I don't think they're super spicy from what I remember. Yeah, I don't think they're spicy at all. But definitely swoon-worthy with her characters. And with a lot of her books, she ties in this like almost time travel element. And a lot of them have to do with Scotland and Canada, and I'm trying to think if any of them make it over to the US. Maybe. But yeah, this one takes place in the spring of 1708. An invading Jacobite fleet of French and Scottish soldiers nearly succeed in landing the exiled James Stuart in Scotland to reclaim his crown. This takes place at Slains Castle. There's present-day storytelling tied in with the past, and these books are just all-encompassing, super, yeah, just easy to get lost in. And so there's also so much going on that, again, to reread it, it enhances the story. You catch things that you might not have caught before. A lot of times my first read through of books, especially like these where they're big, and yeah, I kind of just want to know what happens. Like, I really just want to know what happens. I don't flip to the end of the books like ever, but I still want to know what happens. And so sometimes I read faster than I would like, and that's when going back through is really nice, to be able to get lost in a book all over again. And this in particular, her writing, she has such a strong sense of place, that her descriptions are over the top but not boring. Yeah, she's a real treasure. If you haven't checked her out, I might start with this one and then just see if the other ones sound interesting. I need to stop for some tea. Hold on. Oh my goodness. Okay. This next one is not so much the story itself, but the author. She's going to be familiar to a lot of you, I'm sure. Maeve Binchy. This one is A Week in Winter. I think the cover is really sweet. The colors are lovely. Her books often, if not always, follow several different characters, and because of that, they're very easy to reread because there's so many different moving pieces and parts. The first read through is often just so fascinating, particularly as a writer, to see how she weaves the stories and connects the stories in such a skillful way. I think Rosamund Pilcher is another one who does exactly the same thing. And so they're comfortable. You know that there's going to be some kind of resolution in the end. You know all of these characters are going to come together somehow. So there's a certain amount of trust. And I think that's where, if not reading all of an author's books, you get a feel for that. And so that comfort comes in when you kind of know what to expect. And it just kind of, it makes the reading experience really, really lovely. So I love any and all of her books. And finally, similarly to Maeve Binchy, I will read any of Sarah Addison Allen's books for comfort. And again, I used to have all of her books, and I think I've given copies to friends over the years, so I don't have all of them. Otherwise, I would be rereading all of them, especially this time of year. But this is First Frost. And if you are not familiar with Sarah Addison Allen, she writes magical realism in a really, I think in a really unique and subtle way that lends itself to coziness. And just thinking that, maybe it is possible that there's a layer of magic in the world around us, and I feel like she just kind of turns the magic level up a little bit and makes everyday things seem really, really beautiful through that lens. Her books are cozy. Some of them, I think there are some that have characters from previous books and all of that, even if they're not like a sequel or something like that. But yeah, her books are just absolutely lovely. I think I have Other Birds is her newest one, which was good, but it felt a little bit darker than what she'd done before, which I think is fantastic for an author to like try different things and whatnot. But it didn't hit me as cozy as her previous work has. So that's all the books that I have right here. Over moves and over time, I have definitely lost some of my most favorite books, and so I'm working to bring my collection back up. But yeah, these are ones that I go to just to feel a sense of peace, a sense of not necessarily control, but I can control what I'm reading. I know what to expect. And I think that might be where, getting older, it is nice to reread things, because sometimes you just don't want a completely unexpected storyline. You want to know what you're getting into, especially during unprecedented times that we live in. And yeah, you need to find comfort and support however you can. And I think being a reader, we have more choice than we think we do, or maybe that's one of the areas in life where we have a lot more choice, and we can, we can just take that and use it to our advantage. And as a writer, or any creative job, part of the job description is reading. You can't really be a good writer without reading. So yeah, I think that that's one of the fantastic things about being a writer is you can use that as part of the job, and yeah, make extra time for that. So those are my cozy comfort reads for February of 2025. I think if you were to ask me during the summer, my list might actually be different. There might be something to revisit. But if you would like, leave a comment and tell me what your comfort reads are. What are the books that you are drawn to for comfort, and the ones that you reread? Those might be two different lists, right? So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on rereading books and which ones are cozy and comfortable for you. And yeah, until next time, be well, take care, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Okay, I'm back. I cannot believe I forgot this book when I was pulling it out. This was the book that I thought of when I was first starting to plan this video, and then I forgot to pull it. This is probably the book that started me on rereading books. The Snow Child by, I'm going to butcher the name, Eowyn, Ivey, I think. This book I read, if not every winter, every other winter, because it is magical, it is atmospheric, it gives such beautiful descriptions about winter and snow. It takes place in Alaska in 1920, a brutal place to homestead and especially tough for recent arrivals Jack and Mabel. Childless, they are drifting apart. He's struggling to maintain the farm, she crumbling from loneliness and despair. In a moment of levity during the season's first snowfall, they build a child out of snow. The next morning, the snow child is gone, but they glimpse a young girl running through the trees. It's like, I'm looking at the back cover and the words used to describe it. Stunning, bewitching, a magical yet brutally realistic tale, captivating, spellbinding, all of those things. So if you have not read this already, this book is my top winter book. Again, it started the whole idea for this video. So yeah, get your copy and read it. I think that's all. Thank you for watching so long. Yeah, thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for all of you who are watching the video, for the patrons who support this as they support me. You can check out all the information for that and my other work in the description below. And yeah, I do think that's it for today. So enjoy your reading this winter, and I hope it brings you some comfort and peace and joy during during this wild time. So really, be well, take care, and I'll see you soon.